Hello, everybody, and welcome to what I hope was going to be a very interesting half hour about the Oscars. With me is Michael Rothman from ABC News Digital. Tell us, before we begin, a little bit about what you do over there, Michael.
Okay. Well, I cover movies and TV. I've been covering the Oscars for about 6 years now, and this is one of the craziest years yet.
Is there a clear winner in Best Picture, do you
Best
think?
Picture is, I think, one of the most open categories, right?
Yes.
Definitely not a clear winner. I got a couple favorites in mind, and it's not the favorite. No pun intended.
Okay, we're going to run down the films in this category. We're going to start with Best Picture, unlike the Oscars, which ends with Best Picture. I figure we got to grab your attention. There's so many distractions out there, so much competing for your attention, so we're going to just grab right away.
We're not going to make you wait till 11:30 at night.
Exactly, and hopefully it won't be that long. They swear it's going to be a 3-hour show this time. Now, the way I like to begin this, rather than just doing a list, is to show you these props that we have here. Look at this. This is a picture book that Netflix sent for Roma. Look at that. Just picture after picture.
And much like the movie, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, you ever seen anything like it? This is probably, to manufacture this is about $30. To actually buy it in a store, it'd be close to 100. It's got a big highbrow. Assuming is the publisher. And here's the script. Look at this swag, Michael Rothman.
They're too kind, Sandy. They're just too kind.
I don't think kindness has anything to do with it. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Best Picture. We're talking about Oscars. Who's going to win? Michael's got an idea. But first, we're talking about Oscar swag. Now, this starts in the fall. They start sending me this stuff. And there's really a point, besides the fact that these are nice books. It really does demonstrate, doesn't it, Michael, that Netflix is going all out to win this Best Picture Oscar.
I think they were saying, there was reports, I think, maybe late last year or earlier this year, that they were putting out billboards in West Hollywood, too. I mean, they've gone hard on the campaign, and it's like $20 to $30 million alone just trying to win this.
Now let's put that in perspective, folks. They're spending about $10 or $15 million more than the movie cost to make.
Yeah.
So the campaign to win an Oscar is actually 10 or 12 or 15 million bucks more than you see on the screen.
I mean, the thing
What's
is,
that about?
How much is this worth afterwards, right? So for someone like a Netflix who almost has their hands on the throat of the movie industry at this point, as things start to change with streaming and new ways of seeing movies, they see the moment, they feel this, and they're kind of like, if we can win this, I mean, buy some Netflix stock afterwards, if so.
It does put them on the map. I think there's going to be a backlash. I think Steven Spielberg put it over the weekend. He came out against the streamers, as he has done before, saying you should see a movie in a theater, that this Roma and other movies like it deserve to win Emmys for their best television work, but this did have a pretty good theatrical release. Roma, I thought, was an incredible experience for me. Here's why. I have a very short attention span. I'm talking about a guy who made his claim to fame is the Hollywood Minute. And this is from childhood. You know, I have a very short attention span, and seeing somebody, however poetic, cleaning a house for the first 10 minutes of the movie, I frankly delayed seeing it for a while.
Okay.
But it took me in, it drew me in, and to me it's magnificent. What do you think about Roma?
Okay. It's hard to follow that. I have a very short attention span. I am the guy who all moviegoers out there probably hate. I need breaks during watching a movie at home. I'm going to get up, do things.
I knew you were my soul brother.
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
We're meant to be together, Sam.
I'm not allowed to do that in the theater. Believe me, people will say like, won't believe him in the cabs. But anyway, continue.
It was tough. I think it's such a beautiful movie, and also Alfonso reminds me so much of Guillermo from last year. So beloved within the industry, so talented, such a good person, and I think that's going to carry him through. But it dragged a little bit. It felt like watching The Revenant a couple years ago. It's again, there's so much respect for the movie.
But respect doesn't always mean entertaining. Now, what's interesting this year is how many movies, 3 blockbusters in this Best Picture category, have made over $200 million. That's a first for Oscar history. What is that going to mean for Oscar night, do you think?
I think more viewers. I think they're aware of this, and I think we've seen that, you know, in some recent changes, that the Academy, even though we can talk about all the weird things they're doing, but I think they're trying to get a younger viewership in there and get more people watching. I think it's been tough, you know. I think the year Moonlight won, what did they make, like $3 million at the box office or something, which is crazy to me. I can't imagine that.
Yes, there are years where the entire field has made as much as Black Panther. Do you know what I mean? All the movies nominated. But what's the weirdest things that you are seeing this year?
I mean, let's get the elephant in the room. The no host thing, I think, is, and I'd love to get your take on that. I just don't know what to expect. I know they're going to open with some kind of number, I'm sure. There's been a lot of talk about the whole Rob Lowe thing from 30 years ago. I don't expect it'll be that kitschy. But
what we should say is, we had a meeting this morning, and some of the younger people in the room did not know what I was talking about.
Really?
Regarding the most infamous opening number in Oscar history. I happened to be there that night, and the collective reaction was OMG or something stronger. We didn't quite say that.
I would love to know what went through your head when you're watching this live, because
I thought it was one of the stupidest things I'd ever seen. And what's really interesting is that when you watch it back today, there are no reaction shots from the stars during the whole number. And that's because everybody was collectively going OMG, or whatever the 1989 equivalent was.
Whatever the slang was back then.
If you're just joining us, we're talking Oscars, and if you don't remember, it was a famous moment where Rob Lowe sang a duet with Snow White. So badly did it fail, so epically did it flop, that the Walt Disney Company, owner of this television station, considered suing the Academy, of which it's a member, for appropriating Snow White. That's how bad it was.
It was not a good idea by Alan Carr whatsoever.
No, and it ruined.
Terrible idea.
Big producer of the day, ruined his career. That was the famous thing. It was tried briefly in the 70s. What it looks like is a couple of stars come on, they do a half hour, a couple of big stars come follow them. It's been done. It's not unprecedented.
No.
They had nowhere to go. I'm hoping, for the sake of the movies and the Oscars and ABC, that the popularity of these movies
carries it through.
But that said, with the most nominations and with the best chances of winning Best Picture are the 2 art films, I think, Roma and Green Book. Do you disagree?
No. I think Roma and Green Book are the favorite. I do think, I got like a weird gut feeling. I don't know. I don't have any evidence to back this up. I have a feeling Green Book might slip in there and win, because I think...
Me too.
I think Alfonso's... I mean, we're going to get to these categories later. I think he's a lock for a couple of categories. And there's no proof that the Academy does this or the voters in the Academy do this. But I kind of get the feeling that as they're voting, they're giving so much to him, they might say, let's give Green Book a little tip of the cap.
I agree, and I'm going to agree with you, and here's why. There is... When these voters are filling out their ballots, there is a sense that the Oscar is a great reward, and there is a sense that you should spread the wealth. Let me explain how this plays out so that maybe you can fill out your Oscar ballot and get into that Oscar pool and actually win. The way it works is they look at the whole ballot and they think, who is deserving? Okay, Spike Lee, long career, 30 years of being in contention. He's never won a competitive Oscar. Okay. So he's going to get adapted screenplay. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but in recent years, the screenplay categories have been the so-called consolation prize, a way to honor movies and filmmakers who didn't get the big one. Tell us how it works.
It's a really nice look at... What was the year that Steve McQueen won for
12 Years a Slave?
12 Years a Slave. And then obviously did not win for Best Picture, it's a really telling fact when someone wins for adapted screenplay, they're probably not going to win for director or for the bigger categories later on.
This is the first time that Spike Lee has been nominated in the director category, and
which is also crazy, right?
It is. Let's look at that category. Alfonso Cuarón, I believe, will be recognized for Roma here. He's the prohibitive favorite. Spike Lee, though, this is a person who, after all these decades, finally gets nominated.
Yeah.
And you'd think, well, wow, that's overwhelming. Remember, the Academy membership is still overwhelmingly very conservative. It does not look like America.
No.
It is.
No.
It's getting better, but the fact of the matter is, Alfonso Cuarón, I think, is the. Also, Yorgos Lanthimos for the favorite. There's another way to honor him with a screenplay as well.
Yeah.
So the favorite is this quirky movie that both of us hate. But younger people seem to like.
That's why I'm laughing so hard.
So if you like The Favorite, now is the time to get with Sarah off to the right here and tell us why
Just yell
The
at us.
Favorite.
Yeah,
why we're wrong
Totally
about
fine.
The Favorite. I knew I liked this guy. He walked in and I caught him talking to Bob Monik about how he dislikes The Favorite. I thought it's going to be a fun half hour.
I mean, you're my brother from another mother.
That's
obviously.
it.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a screenplay award.
I will say, though, with director, still disappointed that maybe a Deborah Granick or a Marielle Heller wasn't in there.
Absolutely. You know, it's with the Academy, sometimes it's that one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah.
Or maybe, if I'm being generous, two steps forward, one step back. Needs to be more female directors and need to be recognized. The record in the director category in particular, quite poor.
Ooh, like 1 in 5, right? Which is absolutely nuts.
So, shall we go to the Best Actress category?
Yes, we should.
And this is going to be a quick one, I think, because it's a lock.
It's weird. I never thought I'd be saying this line ever, but Glenn Close is this year's Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like when she has to win, like, you know, poor Leo. But I'm surprised Glenn Close, this is what, her 7th nod?
Yes.
And the fact that she hasn't won before is really surprising.
She is, as someone said, the stars have to be in alignment, and they have not been in alignment for Glenn Close. And the interesting thing here is there is no other living person who has been nominated this many times for an Oscar and hasn't won. One behind is Amy Adams, so she's going to have to wait. But this is Glenn Close's year.
Yeah.
Now, here's something that fascinates me, and I know you can amplify on this. There is a scene that with these previous awards, when you give a great speech.
Yes, yes.
Tell us how that works, because most people don't know about the speech thing.
Well, I think Glenn Close is definitely the example of that. I think, and we'll get to Regina King later on, who is also in the same topic with great speeches. I think we were just talking about, you know, Oscar campaigns. Matthew McConaughey comes to mind. The year he won for Dallas Buyers Club, he was just charming. His all right speech just really carried him through. And I think that, because he wasn't the favorite starting off award season. And I think Glenn Close, I mean, it couldn't be a perfect movie for right now, for 2018, 2019, playing a wife who, you know, basically put her life second for her husband, and then towards the end really comes out of her shell and owns her worth. I think the speech is just, it writes itself right there, and Glenn Close is the perfect person to deliver.
I saw her at the Oscar nominees lunch, and I was talking to my friend Sid Ganis, former president of the Academy, and she just walked in this immaculate, beautiful, kind of lime green, but very subtle green pantsuit. And I just thought, this woman's doing everything right. So I turned to her and said, "You're doing everything right." And she looked a little startled. And then I quickly rallied. I said, "Are you having fun?" She said, "Yes, I'm having fun." But the fact is that these previous award shows happen when voters are trying to decide how to mark their ballot. And for better or worse, or like it or not, these powerful speeches at previous award shows, they can make a difference, can't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it separates you as far as in the court of public opinion, but also more importantly in the voters' opinion. I mean, Olivia Colman was for a movie that I did disliked,
that being The Favorite.
She was great in The Favorite, though. If you really isolate her performance, she's just wacky, crazy out there, and one day she'll get her due because she's just like an actress who's just
She can do. My wife and I, my wife Eileen loves the British shows. Never found never found a show that she didn't love. So we know Olivia Colman a lot better than the average person. Now here's something that's interesting. At Critics' Choice, I voted Critics' Choice, and I voted for Glenn Close, and I realized that if I had forgot to mark my ballot, it wouldn't have been the tie.
Wow.
Because it's the only time I think that I ever had any impact here. But anyway, I did mark my ballot. It was a tie. Is there a chance that Lady Gaga is going to sneak into this category as a winner?
I don't think so. I think she's lost a little bit of momentum, but I also think she's another one. You said Spreading the Wealth. She's a lock for Shallow, for Best Song. I mean,
so she's going home with an Oscar for sure. And she's going to have another day. Oscar,
she'll get her EGOT down the road, don't worry.
The largest, and the EGOT, for those who don't know?
EGOT is Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. It is one of the most prestigious, toughest things. It's basically the Triple Crown for acting.
You got to win all those awards. Only a few living people have ever done that. Only a few people in history. But the fact is that the performers are the biggest block voting in these Oscars, and they are loath to honor first performances and that kind of thing. You got to pay your dues. So Lady Gaga, unlikely. There was a great story. There's only one tie at the Oscars, and it came when there were many, many fewer voters. And of all things, it came between Katharine Hepburn and Goldie Hawn, I believe.
Wow!
Right?
Wow!
So the guy with the envelope handed the envelope to the presenter and said, "Read this one very carefully." That's the only tie that ever happened.
That's what probably Warren Beatty should have done a couple of years ago for Best Picture.
Yeah, he should have taken a moment, right?
Why is Emma Stone winning Best Picture?
One of my favorites about that moment was we did a piece with Matt Damon and Jimmy Kimmel, who were sitting together when the mistake happened. We did it on separate coasts, and their version of the story, even though they were sitting next to each other, completely different.
Of course. But I also love it that they like are very good friends, but they also pick on each other. So I could see Matt Damon taking credit for that and being like, I had to get Jimmy.
Then there's the concept of the nomination is the win, Yalitza Aparicio.
I mean,
I love this. Most people don't realize, I was ignorant about this, that the indigenous people of Mexico are very much a persecuted minority.
Yeah.
And you had this recently. There was a Mexican actor who was overheard being very disparaging towards her, calling her a very negative name that they use to, so she is doing this. She doesn't know if she's going to act again. She's doing this for the indigenous people. Melissa McCarthy, really a change of pace there. The actors love that. The nomination is the win.
Yeah. I mean, well, in her case, Yalitza, this is the story. I mean, a teacher, first time out. I mean, I really hope she does act again because we need more of that in this
Absolutely.
industry.
Moving on to Best Supporting Actor, and that is someone who has become a lock in the last
really
month.
Surprising.
Tell us about Rami Malek.
He's just riding a wave of momentum that we haven't seen in quite a while. It does. Again, I hate to bring up the same example. It reminds me of McConaughey a couple years ago. I really thought Bale was a lock, and now I'm remembering. I wonder if Bale was the one that I thought was a frontrunner in McConaughey's year. But I'll look that up one day.
But the Oscar loves transformation. Here's how quickly this is going, folks. If you go onto elsewhere on the website, you will find Sandy's Oscar predictions. And this was recorded a couple of weeks ago. So I say, well, it might be Christian Bale, who I think should win, or Rami Malek. Well, since then, it's like Bale has been pushed out. Here's how intense this is. The New York Times went to 20 voters and asked them how they were going to vote. 20 unidentified voters, because it's not cool. You can't do that. The Academy takes a dim view. So the voters aren't identified. They're just young, they're old, they're male, they're female, they're people of color, etc. 20 voters.
Yeah. A nice sample size.
Every single one says they're voting for Rami Malek. And it's like, Done.
I mean, if you take SAG, BAFTAs, and obviously
Golden Globe, they won
tied,
both.
Yeah,
won.
because the
Both
Globes
not
has
a tie, but
comedy and drama, so
right. Okay, so that's what's happening. We need your questions. Ask away. Here's your opportunity. 10 more minutes. We're almost finished with the nuts and the bolts here. I can tell stories.
We're not going 3 hours?
No, I can tell stories.
I can do this all day with you. Come on.
Thank you. You know, I talk so much. You know what we call this? Just getting started. But anyway,
I want to get your story about Bradley Cooper before. I mean, else we have questions.
Okay, so
you told me this before we went live, and I was floored.
But this is a perspective that I really am not sure you're going to hear anywhere else. Okay, what happened to Bradley Cooper and A Star Is Born? What exactly happened? All right, I came out of A Star Is Born before I saw anything else, I think, pretty much. I think I'd seen Melissa McCarthy's movie, but that's about it. Came out of A Star Is Born, went home, said to my wife, said to this here newsroom, that's going to be Best Picture.
Yeah.
Cooper, they won't give him director because, again, they like you to have a few more credits under your belt.
But they'll nominate him, though, I thought.
Yeah, I thought they nominated him, but he's not going to get it. But he is in the running in the acting category. Trust me on that one, going away. Then Mr. Cooper did something with the New York Times that he never recovered from. This is truly one of the most amazing things, and I've done a lot of these. I've never seen this happen. The headline on this very extensive profile, which I urge you to read, says simply, Bradley Cooper is not really into this profile.
Yeah.
Now, whatever you feel about the New York Times, if you're in Hollywood, you can't blow them off because every voter, Oscar, pretty much reads the New York Times.
There's a handful of publications, the Times, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety. Just be very kind to these people.
Now, before we went on, we were talking about this. We almost blew the deadline at the top of 8. What was your reaction when I showed you this?
I remember seeing this, but not reading through it, to be completely honest. And then seeing some of the lines written by the author. Dead on arrival, it's just DOA.
It is brutal because basically he doesn't want to answer the personal questions she wants to ask. Instead, and this is the sin. If you're listening, Bradley, this is the sin. He gives her
texting us right now.
gives her the same information that he tells everybody else. Now, you can do that to Entertainment Tonight. You can do that to Access Hollywood. They won't care. You cannot do that to the New York Times. Now, lest you think that I am overplaying this, this is what happened. A disastrous profile appears in the New York Times. Suddenly after this, what? Bradley Cooper's everywhere. Give us the list just on ABC. GMA.
GMA, Nightline, 2020.
On and on and on.
He's doing some other shows on networks we won't name.
He's everywhere. So now everybody looks at that and says, okay, overexposed, done.
It's just a...
lesson learned. I built a really expensive house one time and lost a lot of money. I've learned a lot of lessons. You can't blow off the New York Times.
It's just a shame. Like, I think you have to. I think the knock always is, you know, we're gonna hear as the comebacks are gonna be like, oh well, why does he have to answer personal questions, talk about the art, whatever.
Got to give him something.
You have to.
You've got to figure out something.
You know, you need something. I mean, you're in this. You chose this line of work. You know, you have to give him something.
Which reminds me of a story that I've been at this a while, so I'm used to, like, when stars do some of the big shows like 2020, they up their game is the best way that I can describe it. Some people, they give you a little more. So one time, Daniel Craig, one of the most reticent interviewees ever, much worse than anybody else, basically. So he was going to be on 60 Minutes. So I thought, okay, what is he going to give 60 Minutes? Short answer, not much. Because he doesn't care. That's the difference. Bradley Cooper wanted to win and blew it through an interview. Should it be that way? Probably not.
You talked about Oscars loves transformations. I think we have Rami and we have Christian Bale, which are very obvious transformations.
Right.
I think the most organic was Bradley Cooper. I think there was very...
Definitely.
It was very hard to I can't steal this line because it was someone I interviewed today about it, but to see where Bradley Cooper ends and Jackson Maine begins.
Yeah, well said.
Sorry, Candace, I stole your line.
Well said, well said.
And it's so organic. I mean, I remember the scene that I remember is him in the limo when Lady Gaga's leaving, and the first time they meet, he looks like he lived hard. Like,
and the other thing is, he sells the plane. I think Bradley Cooper should win the Oscar. Next time he'll be better about it.
Yeah,
and take lessons from Glenn Close.
Yeah.
Okay. This is we got to move along here.
Supporting actress.
Supporting actress.
It's another lock.
Yeah, Regina King. How did she become a lock?
I don't know. She's just having a year and a half. I think she's been winning on both the TV and film side. And then to your point earlier, she had a speech where she challenged Hollywood to be more inclusive with women directors, women, in the technical categories like writing and producing, and it just kind of caught fire. And you've seen the 4% challenge come out of it with Time's Up, and I just think it's just her year. It's just
4% challenge. Explain for those folks who may not know.
So basically, it is so bad. The past year and then also the past decade, the Annenberg study, which is in Southern California, found that we talked about female directors there's such a dearth of women behind the camera, women winning awards for being behind the camera, and over the past decade, only 4% of women have directed the top, I think it's like 100 or 120 grossing films in Hollywood, which is it's kind of embarrassing.
Until very recently, when I was 9 years old, I went out and fell in love with the movies when I saw somebody making a movie, a Hollywood movie on my street. Until very recently, the crew that I saw when I was 9 was looked the same as the crews now. And that's changing, but that's sort of where. Regina King also has won Emmys. Again, it's the speeches. And what I loved was If Beale Street Could Talk was kind of a sleeper. I thought it was a little too reverential, a little too bowing down in a way that I don't, it was a little, it lacked the heat of some of the scenes that Regina plays so well. Oh, that scene with the other family, when they get into it there. If the whole movie if there'd been more of that, it would have.
I mean, if you see 7 Seconds, that she epitomizes exactly what you're saying in there. That's the show on Netflix that she's won Emmys for. I mean, it's funny because at the Globes, I think she was nominated or took home awards for both the TV series on Netflix and the movie. She's
definitely of the moment. Before we leave, let's talk about Black Panther. I want to tell you about this extraordinary experience that I had going up to the Harlem School of the Arts after the movie was released. I really got the feeling of what this movie meant to so many communities across this country and across this world.
I got a chance to go, very similar, which is great. I love that story. I went to the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem and got to talk to the kids, and they were all doing the Wakanda Forever.
We did the same story, basically, at different places.
But it's so much fun, and it really brings you, for me, and I'm not just saying this, it's going to sound so cliche, but it really brings you back to being a kid and seeing why these things are important, and talking to the 6- and 8-year-olds that I talk to who, they will give you a 1- and 2-word answer. It's really kind of adorable and shy, but it shows you what these movies mean, and I think that's why Black Panther is just, it wasn't even a movie, it was like a religious movement this year, basically.
I think that it means a lot. It's so much to me that I made it my #1 movie of the 200 I saw last year because of its quality, what it says and everything, but also because of that impact.
The themes too that are in there. I mean, it's not even just, and again, I'm stealing, so all right, I gotta give her credit for, she's made some great comments, and I'm gonna share one in a second, but Candace Frederick, who is she's written for The Times, she's a critic who writes for Rotten Tomatoes, she's fantastic. But she talked about the fact that it's really about like being an African American and having that juggle between being an American and an African at the same time. There's also the nature versus nurture. I mean, there's so many themes in there that are just amazing. It's truly an onion. Like, just keep unwrapping the layers.
Do you think it'll win anything on Sunday night?
Oh yeah. I think it'll win a ton of technical categories. I think, what is it? It's up for
production design.
Best score, which is I was surprised that A Star Is Born wasn't nominated for Best Score, so I feel like that's one of the front runners there. It's going to win for sound editing, sound mixing. I think it'll win a handful of awards.
Although Bohemian Rhapsody is favored in that category.
Yeah, you're right.
Do we have any questions?
We do. So Quentin, who also said he thought The Favorite was not that bad, wants to know, is a drama the only movie that can win big?
Seems that way.
Yeah.
The Oscars all about serious comedy. Many people believe, and I agree, is often tougher to do.
Yeah.
It just hasn't done well. If you look at the great comedies ever made, they either weren't nominated and they certainly didn't win. This is Hollywood's serious night, Quentin. Quentin, how old is Quentin?
I don't know.
Okay. Because Quentin, if you're young, The Favorite
I was gonna
seems
say you got. I was gonna say you have a hunch that
I think the movie that stops at around 30. You're just a tad over 30, and you hated it.
A tad, yeah.
I'm a lot over 30, and I hated it. But the people
look a day over 21. Get out of here.
People that I work with that often love it. Anything else?
We had a question a little back. We actually had a couple why certain movies get more Oscar attention than others. For example, someone was saying they thought Cold War was very deserving of some of the attention, and it was even compared to why not being nominated like Roma. And then we had another question, why not Avengers compared to Black Panther?
Avengers, I think Black Panther as the first superhero movie ever nominated for Best Picture, ever.
Yeah.
And you got to remember how serious this got. That when The Dark Knight, which will stand the test of time and does, was not nominated, they actually expanded the category to try and accommodate some of these movies. And it was a result of The Dark Knight missing when there were 5. So that was a big move, a move that's paying off for Black Panther. You will have to see if this is part of a trend or a kind of a one-off. Now on Cold War, did you see that movie?
I did not. I'm going to admit and be
Cold War is up for foreign language film. Cold War is one of those movies, it's black and white, Polish, it looks great. It's one of those where you think it sure looks great and seems great. However, if you're old enough to have basically known people of the age that couple would have been, it doesn't quite ring true.
Okay.
It's a story about passion people with no passion or not enough.
And the Oscar campaign, where's the campaign? Where's our Cold War books?
Folks, it's tough to say it, but there was a movie called Private War, which I thought was my number 2.
Was that Tom Hanks?
No, Private War was Rosamund Pike playing the late journalist who got killed.
She was fantastic.
It was fantastic, and it just to cut through the clutter, you need the big bucks. I also like that movie with Julia Roberts and Ben is Back.
Okay.
And that was a story about a young man who is fighting alcoholism. Was fantastic. I thought it was going to be part of the Oscar conversation, but it wasn't.
To tie in what you said earlier about this is like kind of my realm with the Avengers and Black Panther. This is where I feel comfortable. I'm at home. But what you said earlier about the comedies not really getting the fair shake. You mentioned the Dark Knight controversy, which wasn't really a controversy, but why they expanded the field. I was surprised a couple of years ago, but it makes sense with the lack of comedies that Deadpool didn't get in for being original, being creative, thumbing its nose at superhero movies in general. And I thought that was a really unique film. But again, too kitschy, it's a comedy, and it just, even though it was a really unique film, just not going to get there.
And to go back to the New York Times article where they talked to the 20 voters, they talked to the older voters, and he hasn't seen Black Panther yet.
Wow.
And voting closed today. It actually closed while we were doing this.
Yeah.
Voting has closed for this year because it's 5 o'clock in Los Angeles. Closing thoughts.
Oof. Oh my God.
I hope the show runs close to 3 hours. I've covered them as long as 4 hours and 10. I hope people do root for their favorites. and I hope that they find a host next year.
I hope they don't play off an amazing speech with this cue music or whatever. I think in a night where there's no host, and you're not going to have Kimmel, being sarcastic and funny and goofy, I think they should elevate the speeches, elevate the importance of these things.
Great
Serena
point.
Williams speaking to A Star Is Born and other important people. I think just let it come in, let them take it. I mean,
you wanted to mention Serena, the importance of having her there. Good move for you?
I think it's great. I don't understand the pairing, though. I'd rather see her talk to the character of Black Panther, because that's nominated for Best Picture. But maybe there's something that I don't know. But then again, it's the 2019 Oscars, so.
All right, before we go, I am going to head to Los Angeles Thursday morning. We have a great program planned for you. I know you do on digital. On this site, there will be much. I want to close with a plug for a piece that I do with a great editor by the name of Dennis Hogan, and it is called Backstage, and you will find it on this site. It's called Backstage, and Backstage is literally that. We're going to have 5 reports on Oscars up there now, some red carpet action, and we have a 6th on the Academy Museum coming in just a couple of days. These are pieces where there's very little talking by me, believe it or not, having just spent a half hour. Very little talking, a lot of natural sound, a lot of we hear from the stars. It's called Backstage. It's on this site. And for now, we just say goodnight, right?
It's been an honor, my friend.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. See you next time.